Good afternoon. You're with Connor Davidson on the Channel 5 News. Today we will be talking about the Spoon River Anthology, about 25 people. Our first group is a family known as the Pantiers. Ben Pantier is the father of Reuben Pantier. However, he was kicked out by his wife and he had to go live with his dog, Nig. And he was later buried with his dog because his wife left him and did not want to be buried next to him. Mrs. Pantier is the wife of Ben Pantier and the mother of Reuben, and she left Ben because she was disgusted by his character and all of his attitudes, and so she left him for someone else. Reuben Pantier is their son, and he loved his teacher, Emily Sparks. However, he had to grow up and he knew he had to leave. However, he grew up to fake love another person when all he thought about was Emily. And Emily Sparks was Reuben's lover. However, she had to leave him because she was a teacher and she knew that she couldn't be with him. However, her morals and her values rubbed off on Reuben, and she and him both lived pretty good lives. Also, we have Trainer the druggist, who is kind of a judger of families, and he has judged the Pantier family, showing that certain chemicals do and do not mix, and he showed that the Pantiers were chemicals that did not mix. However, he died due to a tragic chemical mixing problem, and he died of infection. Next on the list we have Jonas and Kinsey Keene. They were a family who did not have successful children, and Jonas and Kinsey were both husband and wife. They did not have successful children, and so Jonas killed himself by walking out in a rainstorm one night without shoes and dying of sickness due to pneumonia, and was not cared for because he did not want to be cared for, and so he just decided to die. Kinsey Keene, she never gave up on life. She tried hard to succeed at life, and through her perseverance she lived a pretty good life and died a well death next to her husband. Next we have Daisy and Benjamin Fraser. Daisy was a humble worker, and we see through her epitaph that she kind of worked for women's rights because women were discriminated, and she calls out a lot of people because she feels as though they live wicked and twisted lives where she's actually humble and she works for good causes. Ben, her husband, is kind of tormented by these souls. However, he eventually fights them off, but instead of fighting them off, when he does defeat them, he kind of leaves his life behind and lives in this lifeless void. Some of the people that Daisy calls out are Whedon, who is a scandal, and a man who is a cheapskate and gambles for his life, and yet he makes a lot of money. Another person is Reverend Wiley, kind of ironic as he's a man of God. He is not credited for his work, yet he still is not as humble as Daisy. We also have the circuit judge, who is a liar and a false accuser of people, and he is non-truthful even though he should be a man of the law. There are people associated with Daisy, like Sarepta Mason, who is also ignored by society even though she tries hard to do good works. And she is also a person who worked for women's rights. Someone who is associated with Circuit Judge is Put Hott, who was a murderer due to the fact that he hated big businessmen and scandalers, and so he thought he could get back at them for murdering someone to show how wicked they were, and yet he gave up his life for no reason. Next on the list is Blind Jack and Butch Weldy, and they are both an ironic couple as they were both blind and crippled due to Blind Jack dying of reckless driving, you may call it, because he was trying to play the fiddle and drive a horse carriage at the same time, and yet he lost control and should have just concentrated on driving, and yet he fell in a ditch with the carriage on top of him. And Butch Weldy became blind due to a fire explosion from a gas tank, and he was flown several feet into the air due to the explosion, and he was crippled by the fire due to his blindness. However, his legs recovered from being broken. But they were both handicapped due to their blindness, and both died kind of just terrible deaths. Nolt Holmheimer and Lydia Puckett are both connected in that Holt was in love with Lydia, but she cheated on him, and so he became stubborn through that and decided to go join the army to try to take his anger out and just to get away from everything, and yet he was killed during a battle, and Lydia Puckett got the news and she didn't care because she cheated on Noltz, saying that he just needed to go away and she didn't like him, and so she kind of caused his death in an ironic situation.